Well, thank you everybody for joining us today. We're so thrilled that you have invested in yourself this lunch hour and to learn more about application strategies for final MBA deadlines. Before I turn it over to our amazing moderator, Jenny Lee, to lead the conversation, I'm just going to share a little bit about who we are, what we do, and why the work we do is so important. So, Forte is a nonprofit organization that is working really hard to fuel the future of business. And we do this through a strong alliance of business schools, undergraduate institutions, and leading companies who together we all help you to reimagine what's possible for your future, for your career, for your bank account. And we do this through various programming, resources, networking opportunities, and events. And all of them are designed to help you succeed at your goals. Speaking of events, we would love to have you join us at our upcoming MBA prep event. So the one, for example, that you're attending today is the application strategies for final deadlines. We will have one coming up in the next week or so, your MBA, your way, program options for working professionals. So if you're looking to still work but want to get an MBA, do not miss out on registering for this amazing webinar. Then we'll close out April and May with taking your MBA global, learning about programs that are in the UK, EU, and the May 13th, which is all about how an MBA can change everything. These webinars, once again, are free to register. So definitely register as soon as you can so it shows up on your calendar as a reminder. The other event that we'd absolutely love to have you join us at is our virtual Forte MBA Forum, which will be on April 9th from 11 to 2. That seems like a long period of time, but it is a choose your own adventure type of event. So during that span of time, we will have various school presentations, various admission panel presentations, as well as over 70 schools exhibiting at this event. It is completely free, so be sure to either scan the QR code, or I think Sarah's also dropping some links as well to this event. Once again, it is completely free, and don't forget to register so that you get the calendar invite for it. If you are looking to build your best application and looking to apply here in fall 2026, definitely look into our Forte MBA Launch program. It is an 8-month program that's designed to help you put your best foot forward when it comes to MBA applications. It is an application prep that includes accountability, community, expert advice from many experts, including school reps and consultants. When you complete the program, you get access to fee waivers to about 40 plus member schools. It is an amazing program. Enrollment will still stay open through the end of this month. So definitely don't miss out on your opportunity to be part of the 2026 cohort. If you'd like to learn more about MBA Launch, you can either click on that link that Sarah dropped in the chat, or you can scan this QR code or visit our website, fortefoundation.org/MBA launch. We could not do the work that we do today without the help of our amazing partners. So we will also drop a link to the list of our full partner list, but I'd like to shout out these particular 5 schools who are sponsoring today's webinar: Notre Dame, Georgetown, University of Minnesota, Johns Hopkins, and the University of Cambridge. Because of amazing schools like this, we're able to bring you such rich content and help you succeed on your goal to an MBA. Okay, now that's enough about me talking about what we do. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing and turn it over to Jenny Lee, who's going to lead us in a discussion about final deadlines.
Thank you so much, Melissa. As Melissa mentioned, my name is Jenny Lee. I'm a member of the Forte Alumni Board. So I was recently the chair and very excited to continue volunteering with Forte in different capacities. I was a Columbia Business School alum in 2020, and I worked for a wealth management firm called Ozag, and very excited to moderate this discussion as more of an alumni lens. I'm really excited to have this fantastic panel of admissions experts. These are the people that are actually reading your applications. They're at the different fairs, and they're the ones that can give you the expert advice on what they've seen, tips and trips with the application process. I'm going to give each person just 1 or 2 minutes to briefly introduce themselves. So please say your name, what school you're representing, and then if you want to, you can throw in a fun fact. We're going to start with Anne and then kind of go down to Eunice, Jen, Serena, and Mikhail. After we do quick introductions, we're then going to talk about an overview of the application pieces and then some questions before opening it up to Q&A. And so with that, let's start off with Anne, Eunice, Jen, Serena, and then Mikhail.
Great. Thank you, Jenny. And thank you, Forte, for hosting this event today. My name is Ann Kilby. I'm Associate Dean of MBA Admissions at Georgetown McDonough. Fun fact, I'm a swimmer, and I used to do and hope to still do open water races. And when I lived in New York, I swam in every river. So, yeah, that's it.
Hi everyone, my name is Eunice. I'm representing the University of Cambridge Judge Business School for the one-year full-time MBA program. So fun fact, so I originally come from Hong Kong, but I studied in Australia and now I'm in UK. Well, we're in UK, people talk about weather a lot. I would say, definitely it's quite fun for me to experience kind of mixture of humid weather and hot weather previously. So yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. I'm very pleasant to be here today.
I think I'm up next. Hi, everybody. Thank you, Forte and Jenny. My name is Jennifer Lampton. I am here representing the Johns Hopkins Carey Business School. It's in Baltimore and DC, and my fun fact is that I'm actually a Baltimore native. My mom was a Hopkins nurse. My grandfather was a Hopkins doctor. So if anyone needs to know more about Johns Hopkins, and obviously the Carey Business School, I'd love to chat.
Awesome. I think I'm next here. Hi, everyone. I'm Serena Carr-Humphrey. I'm one of the Senior Associate Directors of Recruiting here at Minnesota Carlson. Fun fact about me, I am born and raised in the Twin Cities of Minnesota. Huge advocate of Minneapolis and all the great things that we have going on here, whether it's business, the great outdoors. So of course, looking forward to sharing a little bit more with you all on the application process here. And of course, if you have questions, please let us know.
All right, I think I'm rounding us out. My name is Mikhail Elliott. I'm Senior Associate Director of Graduate Admissions here at Notre Dame Mendoza College of Business. I guess my fun fact will be that Notre Dame is located in South Bend, Indiana, and that's about an hour 45 from Chicago if you're not familiar. I am not a South Bend local, so I do have that perspective of coming from elsewhere. And so if you do have any questions about what it's like to move to South Bend, Indiana, I am your girl.
Great. Thank you so much. I always love hearing about people's fun facts. It's one of those things that you will have to, do your standard business school introduction once you start business school. So great to always get those out, especially from our admissions experts. So for the next part of our segment, we're going to talk about an overview of the application pieces. Hopefully at this point, with round 3 coming up very soon, you've taken the GMAT, you've started your application, or at least are 80% to 90% done. But we always thought it'd be nice to have 1 or 2 tidbits about each of the different application pieces by our esteemed panel. I'm going to start off with Anne. Anne, can you talk a little bit about the GMAT versus GRE and academics and just some quick sound bites? I think people always wonder, does it matter if I take the GMAT or GRE? And does my, X GPA from 10 years ago matter? So any commentary from you would be really helpful.
Sure, I'm happy to, Jenny. I get the fun topic of standardized testing. I know this is the aspect everyone looks forward to the most in the process. Obviously, I'm being sarcastic, but so why some schools might require a standardized test? We receive applications from folks all over the world with all kinds of educational backgrounds, small schools, large schools, private schools, engineering schools, liberal arts, et cetera, et cetera. Standardized test is exactly as it's described. It's meant to standardize to allow us to have the same measure across candidates. Now, the requirements of standardized tests, meaning a test waiver policy, as well as target scores, so class profile data, really varies from school to school. So you certainly want to make sure you do your research, engage with admissions to find out what is their eligibility criteria for a test waiver, whether or not you're a good fit for that. And if not, what test might make the most sense for you. So in terms of testing test select guidance. If you are not already loyal to a test, the first best next step is to take a practice test and see which test you're most naturally inclined towards. We schools, I hope I can speak for all of us here, do not have a preference on your test select. We want you to strategically pick the one that you feel as if you can perform the best. They are different types of test questions. I know we said GMAT or GRE. Some schools take the executive assessment as well. So again, know what your school requires. Tests expire after 5 years, so make sure that you meet that criteria. And then in terms of balancing your test with your undergraduate history, your test score is certainly one data point. It is one data point we are using to try to predict your future success in the MBA classroom. And so with that, another primary indicator for prediction is your undergraduate history. So we look at these together, and how much weight one has versus the other depends on this holistic review. So if your undergraduate history, your average GPA fell underneath the class profile average, then we would look more to the standardized test to overcompensate. You can't do anything to your undergraduate GPA. It is static. So there's a little more control around the standardized test. Anything else on that? You all let me know if I missed anything.
Great, thanks so much, Anne. Does anyone else want to comment on about academics or standardized tests before we move on to the next part of the application piece or process? Thank you. And I will know, I know I'm not a great test taker, so I ended up, and please, hopefully people don't have to take this 10 times, but I took the GMAT 5 times to get my score up to the average that Columbia had. It was a very painful process, and then hopefully my, obviously got in, so that was good news, but definitely make sure that it's a holistic view of the application, as Anne mentioned, and do your research before you kind of try taking a test 10 times or, honing in on one test versus another. Let's move on to Eunice to talk a little bit about your work experience and your resume or CV, and it'll be interesting too to hear it from an international perspective as well.
Thank you so much, Jenny. And I think I'm going to echo what Anne said just now, that I think, all of you will hear this quite a lot. Check the preference of the school that you're interested in, how they see your score, how they see your CV. I'm pretty sure, most of the school that they might have their own CV template that they could share with you when you kind of, designing, or how you instruct your how you form your CV before you submitting your application. So every school requirement could be very similar, but then there might be some differences. So definitely, check with the school that you prefer, check with the school that you would like to apply on, just to make sure what you submit to them is, what they're looking for. I would say, within the CV, with your work experience, we definitely want to see if, if there's any professional progressions throughout your career journey. If there's any gaps in between the CV, try to keep it in one page, stay focused and stay clarity on your CV, so that the admissions team would be able to scan through your CV and spot your outstanding achievement when they look into your application. I would say also you would like to highlight your achievements, showing the value of what you have been achieved, but not only the responsibilities or activities that you do in your daily duties. And I think that would be a very great way to present your CV, to be try to quantify things. How do you measure your achievement? How do you measure your progression throughout the years of time that you have been working? And for students who have a little bit more of working experience, we tend to look into if you have already gained some leadership experience or people management experience in your daily job. I think most of the business school, they are not looking for a particular type of students. That's the beauty of our MBA program. And that's why, how you present what you have been achieved, what you have been done in your job, that would be how you present what you have done to the admissions committee and the admissions team as well, to decide whether you will be the right candidate, the right fit of the MBA program. And I think another thing would be, if you have any, apart from the management experience, international experience would be another highlight as well, that you would like to add into your CV, in your application to showcase to the admissions committee, that you will be able to work with people from a diverse cultural and professional background. I think that's from me. I'm not sure if my fellow colleagues here have any other thoughts.
Great. Thank you so much, Eunice. And I definitely want to echo what you mentioned. I remember my class it was like 750 students, was super diverse. We had former engineers. I was a former management consultant. We had teachers. I think we had like someone who was on Broadway as an actress. So it's very, very diverse. And so once again, looking at that work experience, that progression, what unique skills and perspective can you bring is really important, versus just having, like there isn't one type of profile that admissions is necessarily looking for. Kind of along that vein, I want to talk a little bit about letters of recommendation. Jen, could you kind of walk us through what that process looks like? Who should you ask? How long do you ask them in advance? What does that kind of look like?
Okay, sure. Thanks, Jenny. So letters of recommendation. This can vary a little bit by school, but at Johns Hopkins, we require that you submit one letter of recommendation. We will read up to two. And ideally, this is going to be a professional recommendation. So, like Eunice and Jenny just said, all sorts of individuals apply to get their MBA. I oftentimes see at Hopkins, they might have recently finished another graduate degree or a PhD, and they ask me, "Oh, do I need to go back and ask my professor?" Typically, what's expected of an MBA recommendation, is that this would be professional. So a supervisor, at your current position, it could be a former position, someone a little higher up than you on the food chain. Maybe if your work is project based, it could potentially be someone you've worked with on a project, maybe a mentor. I know everyone's situation is a little bit different. But we require one. And the way it works is on the application, you upload the contact information for whom you've selected, professional title, email address, and Johns Hopkins reaches out to them. Maybe this varies a little bit by school. But so knowing that's the scenario, if I'm in your shoes, I want to make sure that my recommender has plenty of time. They've got a copy of my resume or CV. They know my plans. Obviously, we're talking about round three, so getting down to the wire here a little bit. Typically, I'd want to give someone at least 2 or 3 weeks. But of course, your recommender is someone that you have a relationship with. So if you're under the wire, hopefully they can work with you. But make sure they're as prepared as possible, to get this recommendation request. And at least on our end, every school could be a little bit different. But it is possible to click that submit button while we wait for the recommendation to come in. So something to keep in mind.
Great. And then Jen, just to kind of confirm, at least for Johns Hopkins, if the recommendation comes in afterwards, are like folks penalized, or does it kind of vary school by school?
There's no penalty, and we won't actually review your materials until it comes in. So you would need to get it in by the deadline. But if you have all of your other ducks in a row, the essays are uploaded, you've got your resume, and you would like to click the submit button, we can wait for the recommendation to come in.
Got it. Thank you so much, Jen. And I remember when I was going through the application, this is embarrassing, it's like 8 years ago now, that was the part that was quote unquote non-controllable. You can take the GMAT, 5 times, you can do your essay, but you got to wait for your recommender. So as Jen mentioned, please, please, please give them plenty of time. It's not just like a standard one pager, for Johns Hopkins, sounds like other schools, they get like a direct link to write this. And so they're going to have to take more time and effort to review it and do it versus just kind of like a standard one pager they just send out. And so definitely appreciate your perspectives on that, Jen. Let's move on to essays and interviews, two very different topics. So Serena would love to kind of walk you through or have you walk us through these two topics of essays and interviews.
Absolutely. So I would say, and I'm sure some of my peers on the call can echo this, the essays and interview are probably my favorite portion of the application. This is really where we get to know you and your story. And so, kind of focusing on the essays first, let's kind of split them up. So, when you think about the essays, everyone is probably going to have different prompts or what they're looking for. But again, we're really wanting to get to know you. I always say it's important to think about your why. Why is right now the best time for your MBA, and why whatever school you're deciding to apply to is that best vehicle to help you get there. So I think Jenny had mentioned earlier, doing your research on exams. You're also going to really want to make sure you're doing your research on schools. Of course, we're kind of getting to those tail end of application rounds. And so you might be thinking, oh, maybe I might repurpose an essay from a school that I applied to in round one. Maybe I didn't get that result I was looking for, so I'm going to use it to apply to a different school here for those final rounds. Certainly, you want to be mindful of using previous essays. Again, every school is probably going to ask different questions. So I always say pay attention to the prompts, page requirements, things like that per each school. But again, this is your opportunity to tell your story. It's not the story that you think we want to hear, it's who you really are. So I think taking that time to do the research, but think about your career goals, think about the schools that you're applying to, and then convey that in your essay can be such a huge part of the application. And it's what can really stand out as you think about putting forward a strong application. I think, I don't remember who had, the transcripts. You can't change your transcripts. You can't necessarily change your professional history, but you can really take the time to cultivate a strong essay. So I always think that this is just such a fun part of the application. Right now, we are in the season of AI, so I always do want to bring that up. I think every school might have different views there. Certainly, we understand AI can kind of be a great kicking off point to building your essay for your application. However, just be mindful that we are familiar with the different kind of AI style templates, and at times we can really tell that this might not be your true authentic story. So just being mindful of that when doing the essay, I also think is really important. And now thinking about the interview, at least at Carlson, it's an invite to interview. I'm not sure if my, colleagues on the call, operate the same way. But with the interview, I think it really is that opportunity to take everything you've put in the application and really have that opportunity to put it into words. So again, preparing for the interview as if you're maybe preparing for a professional interview, doing that research, kind of knowing your short-term and long-term goals, why specifically you're applying to Carlson or Georgetown. Those are the components that can really shine as you think about standing out in the interview and coming prepared. I think every school is probably a little bit different on who's hosting the interview, if they're virtual, in person, some might be pre-recorded. So also, working with your admissions and recruiting team, if you do receive that invite, to really understand the type of interview that you may be walking into, kind of, so to speak, I think can also set you up pretty nicely. But again, this is the part I think that and the admissions and recruiting team that we all love because we really want to get to know you, and this is that opportunity for us to do so. So paying attention to those requirements, the prompts, doing your research, and really just showing up prepared as you think about the interview can really put you in a good spot to be successful in those portions of the application.
Great. Thank you so much, Serena. And what I really loved is really understanding your why. I feel like you're spending lots of money, you're spending, 1 to 2 years, maybe a little bit more on your MBA. So understanding all of those perspectives are really helpful. And I'd love to kind of open it up briefly just on the interview portion because it's so varied by school. Serena, could you comment a little bit about what Carlson does? Is it like an alumni versus an admissions rep? And if anyone else from this panel wants to comment, if you have like a different interview style, I think that might be helpful for this group too.
Yeah, great follow-up. So at least at Carlson, our interviews are either going to be virtual or in person. They're typically hosted by admissions and recruiting representatives. We also have a number of graduate assistants in our office that also support those interviews. So it could be a current MBA student who's serving in a GA style role that would also host that interview, at least here at Carlson.
Great, thank you, Serena. And then I don't know if anyone else on the panel has something different. Like I know I'm an alum for Columbia, and they also have alums do interviews, but any other perspectives anyone wants to share about interviews? Okay. So with that, we'll go to our, our last portion of the application, which is all about the money. So Mikhail, would love to kind of hear your perspectives. And I feel like this is the million, or maybe not million, $200,000, $300,000 question that everyone always has on their mind.
Absolutely, Jenny. So I know this is a hot topic for students, and there's a lot of assumptions about scholarship opportunities, especially in those final rounds. But it's going to be different at each school. And so some schools might have a priority scholarship application deadline. Others, like us, might offer some competitive scholarships throughout the application cycle based on merit. Some may have specific scholarships with deadlines, but merit-based awards based on a general pool with your admission decision. So most of this information will, of course, be available on school's website. So I do encourage students to reference those and then connect with members of the admissions committee to have clarification on what that means for you, what scholarship opportunities you might qualify for. For merit-based awards, most schools will consider things like your undergraduate GPA, test scores, years of work experience. Some schools might also have you submit a scholarship-related essay. So all of those things will be needing to pay attention to as you are applying for awards or going through the general merit-based scholarship process. Seeing how each of those pieces, so that GPA, that test score, years of work experience, stack up against the school's averages might give you an idea of how competitive you might be for that merit-based award, and if it might be advantageous to do things like submit a score or utilize a test waiver. I know we talked about that with Anne earlier, but that could also impact your opportunity for scholarship. And so as you're considering those options, after admission, you'll also want to pay attention to the benefits of a scholarship offer beyond the dollar amount, because fellowships like Forté, for example, might offer opportunities to attend conferences and other benefits. And so those are all things you'll need to take into consideration after being admitted into a program. Again, paying attention to any deadlines is going to be important, as well as making sure to complete any documents that are needed for alignment with scholarship opportunities. But again, each of these are going to be a little bit different for all of our schools. At Mendoza, we do consider all students for merit-based award and offer that upon admission, but we do have some specialty awards available as well.
Great, thank you so much, Mikhail. And as you mentioned, scholarships and funding are a huge topic of discussion. It does vary by school. There's a lot of considerations, so definitely do your research, not just on the school, but the funding and financial support available, because these are definitely sometimes those make or break decisions about going to one school versus another, or even applying for business school. So I just want to thank the panel for this first portion of our webinar, which really covered the 5 aspects of the application process: GMAT, GRE, academics, work experience, resume, CV, letters of recommendation, essays and interviews, and funding and scholarships. Try saying that 5 times fast. That was a really helpful overview, especially for these round 3 applicants. I wanted to now kind of go into more of an open discussion about just some questions about round 3 in particular, any application mistakes you've seen. So anyone from this panel can comment or kind of riff off each other. So feel free to grab the question. So my first question, and then we'll go into open Q&A at the end and then have Melissa close out. So my first question for this group is, what is the potential timeline for candidates who are applying your last round? So feel free to comment for your school specifically. And then I don't know if there's any, like, should they do it now or wait until the next cycle? That could be a good way of thinking about it too. So once again, what's the potential timeline for candidates applying this last round for your school? And then, what are the benefits of waiting versus doing it at this potential point in time?
Okay, happy to take it. So I know so far in the discussion we've been pretty school agnostic. I imagine through this Q&A we'll start to bring in more school nuance. So at Georgetown, our last formal application round is round 3, and that application deadline is April 1, so coming up. However, typically we have a rolling admissions period. We never formally publicize it or promote it until the last deadline passes, because it depends on do we need to offer it just for full-time or part-time or online. It'll depend on the application volume for the last round. My instinct from what I'm seeing so far this cycle is we probably will offer rolling admissions across our 3 MBA programs. And what that looks like is we do rolling release. So every week we're releasing decisions. So it's very quick turnaround. The sooner you apply, the sooner you will be considered. International candidates, we do admit international candidates within the rolling period. You just have to be mindful of, you need to make quick movement on your side for the I-20 documents that need to be submitted. And there is an unknown factor about availability of visa appointments if you are coming to us later. In terms of waiting versus doing now, I always recommend, if you feel good about having a quality application, submit it now. And as long as, worst case scenario, you're prepared to reapply if you don't make it this time, lessons learned, and maybe get some personalized coaching on how you can improve for the next time. So I'd say go for it.
I agree with Anne. I definitely think that there's still value. And of course, each school might be different. But if we're offering later admissions rounds and you know that you want to get started for fall of 2026, there is no harm in trying. And again, best case scenario, you get that decision that you're looking for. Worst case scenario, you've got plenty of time to kind of retool your application and aim for those early rounds of admission. Similar, we have our April 1st deadline, and then we did add, instead of saying a rolling basis, we added a final June 1st deadline as well. As we think about seats still being open, we have a guaranteed scholarship for anyone who applies by April 1st. So there are still some scholarshiping opportunities available at Carlson. And so, yeah, I think it's really just important to weigh those pros and cons. But if you know that, hey, given what I'm thinking for my career and just timeline wise, now works best, I say submit that application and give it a shot.
Great. Thank you so much, Anne and Serena, about that. And then I think both of you kind of touched about some nuances too. Like Anne, you mentioned if you're an international applicant, you do have to rush to get the I-20. Serena, you mentioned that there are still some funding and scholarship opportunities available. Are there any other trade-offs that applicants might need to think about if they're applying in this last round? Like, is the probability of getting admitted lower? Is it higher? Like, just would love to have any other commentary if anyone's open to sharing about that.
Yeah,
Eunice, yes.
I think I can share some of my thoughts here, just based on what we're doing at Judge here. So we do having our next round coming up, which is round 4 on the 30th of March for the next deadline, and then we're having our final round on the 5th of May. So I think very similar to what Serena and Anne just mentioned now. I think as an applicant, you will be the best person to know about, when would be the best stage or period of time that you should submit your application. And, if you are submitting the stronger application that you could have, some of the students, they might have a better undergraduate result, but they did not do very well in the GMAT, GRE, but they kind of like compensate each other. And if you think that's the stronger application that you could put in right now at this stage, and this is the best timing for you to submit the application, I think there's no harm to do it. So I would say you might want to be very crucial on the timeline if you are submitting in later round. It's just because, first of all, I think financial preparation is some of the things that you need to bear in mind. I think most of the business school want the candidates submit their application in an earlier stage so that they can maximize their opportunity on fundings. And I'm pretty sure most of the school, they still have some sort of fundings for candidates to apply in later round, but it's I mean, no matter which round that you're applying to, it could be quite rare opportunity for you to get a 100 fully funded scholarship from, most of the business school. So if you are applying in later round, then that might be something that you need to bear in mind as well, that you need to provide the financial proof to the business school that you will have sufficient fund to fund the program, to fund your living costs, and that always, something on the visa application process as well. So that might be something that you need to prepare on before you submit the application, so that it saves some of your time. Once you get the admissions offer, you can provide all the documents to support your enrollment as well as your visa application.
Great. Thank you so much, Una. It's really, really helpful to kind of hear your perspective on that. Jen, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, Jenny, just briefly. So, it sounds like a lot of the schools, and Hopkins is sort of like what you said, Anne. The final rounds are soon coming to a close, but it's not unusual for us to have a fourth round of admissions deadlines, and that's not going to be necessarily publicized on the website. But we are all here to help you. So if I'm in your shoes and I'm really interested in one of these schools, knowing there is a good chance that you see March 20th on the website, but they might be accepting a few more people, I would definitely work closely with someone in the admissions office. So the Hopkins MBA is fairly small. So a lot of like one-on-one hands-on assistance. And it's obvious everyone here is happy to help. So don't be shy about reaching out to the admissions office to see if there's still some time to apply.
Great. Thank you so much, Jen. So it sounds like you should apply if you feel like you're ready, you took the GMAT, you're like 90% there versus waiting. And so that's definitely really helpful to know that you have this great teams of admissions, graduate students, et cetera, here to help. I'm going to now go to some of the submitted questions, and then afterwards, we're going to have each of the different panelists either share with us one mistake they've seen or one pro tip that they'd like to share before then giving it to Melissa. And so, and once again, open to anyone on the panel. It looks like we have one question really related to someone feels like they don't really have an accounting or business background. They're in technology or a different field. How do they really tell their story to make sure it's compelling for MBA admissions? And once again, open to anyone on the panel to answer.
I can start off. So I think one of the large misconceptions going into an MBA program is that you have to have a business background or you have to have this strong technical background in order to be successful in the program, when in fact, most of the students we see join our program aren't coming from traditional business backgrounds. And so I think as you are, one, crafting your resume, talking about your story, building those essays, you'll also want to be thinking about those transferable skill sets that you've gained in your current career that might translate powerfully to whether it be consulting, finance, tech, whatever you are looking to do in the future. And part of that, of course, is just going to be spending the time to be incredibly reflective on how you've impacted organizations and being able to talk about those things, but then also be talking about those soft as well as hard skill sets that you have learned during that time that will impact your future organizations and the classroom environment. And so be considering all of those things. Do not sell yourself short. As Jenny mentioned, I've seen students who have come from acting backgrounds, who have come from the classroom, who have come from a lot of non-traditional backgrounds, who have been able to be leaders in the classroom. So just know that there's opportunity for you, and you are just as valued as those who are coming from other backgrounds.
Great, thanks so much, Mikkel. I remember, I personally studied political science at Harvard, and even though I was a management consultant, I did not know how to read financial statements. So I took all the hardcore finance classes, and it was slightly painful, but it was really one of the reasons why I decided to go back to business school, and it really helped. So definitely encourage people, even if you don't have a quote unquote business background, this is why you're in a business school. And then Eunice, I think you want to add some more thoughts to what Mikkel said as well, too, right?
Yeah, I think it's just something to add on is, that's the beauty of an MBA program that, everyone coming from a very different professional background. And, it's not necessary for you to have that, particular background in quants, in accounting, in finance. And I'm pretty sure, some of your fellow classmates will be able to go into a discussion or helping you out with that as well. And, that's what I think MBA program allows you to not only connecting in the classroom, but, with your fellow classmates. So I think that's, something would be very helpful in your future career as well, that helping out each other in the time of, joining the program. I also think that just I think very similar to what Mikhail say, that in our school, we also have students who coming from like totally non-traditional MBA background, and they're still doing very fine in the program. And I think, during the application period, you might want to focus on like, what you have achieved already, or, why do you think an MBA program? I mean, if that would be a very good reason why you want to come into MBA program as well, because you don't really know about, finance or accounting, and that might be something that you find very useful for your future career aspirations. So yeah.
Great, thank you so much, Eunice. We also have another question in the chat. So this person seems like they're on the lower end of the spectrum in terms of work experience, maybe 2-ish years. How can they make their application stand out if you're kind of on the lower end of work experience? And feel free to broaden it out if someone has like a lower score, academic score. Like, what are some other ways to make up for a lower part of your application? So Jen, Serena, Ann, would love to hear from any of you on that specific topic, either work experience or how to make a slightly less strong part of your application stronger.
I'll start it off, Jenny. So, usually it's one of two things that applicants talk to me about. They're either concerned about their work experience, so this individual, it's 2 years or less, or it's the GPA, right? The things that are out of your control. I think you said that earlier, Serena, like it is what it is. But how can you highlight what you've done? So I'm assuming this person has a traditional trajectory, high school, undergrad, 2-ish years of work experience. Well, can you highlight some of the things on your resume or in an essay question, significant internships, work experiences that you had during undergraduate? Is there an opportunity like at Hopkins to submit 2 recommendations instead of 1? And I bet most schools, there's an additional information question on the application. So it says something like, is there anything that hasn't come across thus far that you would like the admissions committee to know? And my colleagues on the enrollment team who read the applications, they say, we want to know. So if you want to talk about why you had a 2.8, well, I was working full time or I was ill, or how significant these 2 years have been and how you have progressed and why you have the maturity to apply for an MBA program and make an impact now, I would take advantage of everything that you can possibly do. Don't just hope that the admissions committee understands or leave anyone guessing. I would be really straightforward.
And I think just to kind of add on to that, so as you think about your career, if you are kind of at that 2 years, maybe a little lighter, certainly kind of figuring out ways to maybe highlight those non-traditional styles of leadership. So you may not have received a promotion, you may not have a ton of career progression, but have you led projects? Have you led ERGs? Are there other ways that you can convey to us, as Mikhail said, some of those transferable skills that really align with the program, but then also going back to that why that I had mentioned. If you know this is exactly why in your career this is the time for an MBA, being able to kind of convey that message to us is incredibly important. But then kind of echoing those letters of recommendation, we really want to get to know who you are professionally, and that's just another kind of component to tell us that story. I think each program's probably a little bit different in what they're looking for in work experience. So also just keeping in mind that some schools might have a hard firm, you need 3 years, some might be 2 years, so also working with your admissions and recruiting reps to figure out, even if I'm a little bit lighter, could I still apply to this program? I also think can be beneficial. So that way you're not setting yourself up to maybe apply for something that in the end you may not have been eligible for, even regardless. So those are a couple other things to think about.
Great. Thank you so much, Serena. Once again, I feel like everyone always has that spot in their application that they feel like they didn't do the best on. Mine was the GMAT, which is why I obviously took it 5 times. But as Jen mentioned, she gets a lot of questions about, GPA work experience. And so just know that everyone has some part in their application that they know isn't as shiny as others, but there's other ways to do that, either additional information, adding on other perspectives, sending in 2 letters of recommendation, etc. We'll do our last question from the audience, and then we'll do a closer where I'd love to have everyone from this panel really talk about either one mistake or one last tip that you'd like to leave the audience with. And Mikhail, we'll start with you for that last closer, then go to Melissa. So this last question is for Anne and Eunice. I'd love to hear both of your perspectives, being from a US-based school and then I'm going to say non-US based school. But the question's around international students. So we had a question very, very specific about foreign aid from African countries, but I'd love to hear more about, what are some things that international students should be thinking about, and then more specifically about the financial aid question, like are they eligible for financial aid? What considerations do they need to think about or do for that specifically? So Anne and Eunice would love to hear from both of you on that question.
I can start. Eunice, you fill it in from there. So in terms of international considerations, we're from a US institution, we're at a unique time in higher education for internationals. There are 39 countries right now on a travel ban based on a presidential proclamation. So this is a federal government issuance, not a university specific issuance. And for those students who are citizens of those 39 countries, what that means is there are, unless you meet an exception, which it's worth asking the school if you do, US schools are not allowed to sponsor an I-20 for your F1. So it is worth getting that clarification to make sure that you're making an informed decision, even at the application stage. Outside of that, at Georgetown, all students are eligible for scholarships. Our scholarships are merit-based rather than need-based. We do have some named awards. For example, from this candidate's background, we have African scholars for those who are either from Africa or have demonstrated evidence of being aligned with that country in some way, that continent in some way. So we do have some special namings. So absolutely being eligible. Federal aid in the United States is for US citizens. So in terms of piecemealing your funding together, international students, all students tend to do a combination, whether it's private loans, if you are lucky to get some employment, sponsorship, school scholarship, personal savings, family support. It really looks like a combination. And then lastly, I would suggest for all candidates, do your independent research and around nonprofits, NGOs, different organizations that offer funding. I'm always impressed by what our MBA students find. And a good starting point is searching for funding based on different affinity groups is where I see it most common. Eunice, please.
Thanks, Anne, and thanks, Jenny. I think from the UK right now, it just coming to be enforced that 3 of the country will be on the student visa ban coming up, I think, next week. So again, just like what Anne mentioned, this is some of the government policy that no school will be able to override that. So if you are coming from those region, do get in touch with the school that you are applying to and see, if they would be able to kind of fasten your application process so that you can apply for the student visa before that in Forté, or if you could defer your offer to next year and see if the situation change. Just like Georgetown, at Cambridge, we're having our funding on a merit based, regardless if it's on professional side or on an academic base. We do not really do a funding on need base, but really, really very similar to what I mentioned. I think, like starting with NGO or your home government, there are actually quite a lot of different opportunities going on. I can see quite a lot of students, they actually coming into MBA program, but they actually government funded. So I think that would be something very good to start off to do your research regarding on like funding source. One thing about Cambridge is might be a little bit different from other UK or US school is that we're actually under a collegiate system. So you are part of the MBA program within a business school, but then you're also a part of the 31 colleges here at Cambridge. So some of our students will be able to get funding from the business school and then as well as from their colleges. I mean, I'm not going to spend more time to share this. If you're interested to, in our MBA program, do get in touch with our admissions team and we'll be able to share more information with you. And I think for most of the school in UK or Europe, we start the program in mid-September. So very likely if you could able to complete all the conditions by July, I would say late July, you would be on a quite safe timeline on getting your student visa in hand to start the program in September.
Great. Thank you so much, Eunice and Anne. As mentioned, the world's changing, geopolitics. I graduated in 2020, so we had COVID. And so definitely be aware of any political travel bans, anything that's happening, because that's not a school policy, that's a nationwide policy for any international or domestic schools that you might be applying to. I'd love to kind of close out with a lightning round. So one tip or trick or application mistake that you've seen. We've all seen different ones of them. Mikhail, we'll start with you and then go to Jen, Serena. So just once again, lightning round. What is one tip or trick or mistake that you've seen and so people are aware of when they're applying for round 3?
Yeah, I'll start off with an easy one. I think that it's easy, especially if you're rushing, applying for several schools, to reuse materials. We do read other schools' essays. We know what the prompts are. I do not want to see Carlson's name when you are applying for Mendoza. And so please make sure to not only proofread your documents, but to also make sure that you are answering the questions of the specific schools that you are applying to.
Mikhail, we'll do Jen and then Serena.
Sure. Okay, so since we're specifically talking about these later rounds, I wouldn't hesitate to apply now. I think if you're ready now, the admissions committee is going to be thrilled to read your application. And if this is the time and it wasn't 6 months ago, that's perfectly fine. So I don't see any reason to hesitate. Of course, you don't want to rush your materials, but being timid and putting this off for a year just because, oh, it's March and it's not September, don't worry about it. Go for it.
I will just say that, not every application can be perfect, so to speak. And so we have that holistic review process for a reason. And so there might be that one component of your application that you're like, hey, I don't know if I want to hit submit because of X. Don't let that be the reason you don't apply. There's so many other areas to pull in strengths from your application. And as we're all here today, because there's still plenty of time to apply. So, trust that holistic process. Of course, if you don't get that decision that you're looking for, you've got time to retool, kind of reach back out to admissions, figure out maybe what are those pain points in your application, but there's a holistic process for a reason. So I always kind of want that to be the cheerleader moment, that if there's that one little blemish, don't let that be the reason you don't apply to business school.
Thank you, Serena. And then let's do Anne and Eunice.
Okay. So advice that I would give to candidates is be strategic in what you're hoping to convey to the admissions committee, meaning what do you hope the takeaways are that you can focus on in your tailoring your resume and your essay story selection within your interview. So that, for example, if Serena were an MBA candidate and she was intentional in saying, I really want to showcase that I am, I don't know, a nonprofit leader, whatever. Then that is a theme that is continued throughout your application. It comes through in your rec. Again, it comes through in other aspects of your application. And by doing so, having that intentionality, I think it will make your application more true to you, be more memorable, and again, having just some strategy around it.
I think for me, there will be a combination of some of my fellow colleagues here that mentioned earlier. I think one of the biggest things that I really want to say would be something very similar to what Mikhail said just now, that, you know, because of the time that you have would be like very limited, and then you might be submitting multiple applications at the same time. Just check the information that you put in your application, like just the same. We don't want to read your essays to other school when you're submitting your application to us. I think I remember Serena mentioned about, you know, using AI. I mean, it's a good tools, but, you know, we do want to know about your authentic story. So while you're using AI tools, making sure you don't, you know, just put whatever in and form an essay. As I mentioned, professions here, we read a lot of application, and we definitely could tell if that's your authentic story or if that's generated from AI. I think that's pretty much for me.
Great. Thank you so much. I've learned so much from this panel. I'm going to kind of share my takeaways. The first one's really know your why. Why are you going back to business school? Why are you spending 1, 2, 3 years on this and X amount of dollars? The second one is the application is really holistic. Obviously, some people might have concerns about work experience, GPA, etc., but that can be overcome, and you can add in a secondary letter of recommendation, additional information, etc. And the third one is if you're ready, apply now. Everyone kind of stated their April 30th, March, whatever deadlines, but definitely apply now if you're ready and have already been submitting that. And then I'll personally share too. Business school is one of the most amazing experiences I had. I've made lots of friends. Obviously, I've been able to transition more, and now I am more holistically in business and wealth management. And I enjoy giving back to Forte just because it's given so much back to me, being able to go to the conferences, being able to give back to women in business. And so this has been just a blessing to be able to moderate this panel and be able to be part of this group today. And with that, I'll turn it over to Melissa from Forte Foundation to help close us out.
I had to find my unmute button. It was hidden for a hot minute. Thank you so much, Jenny, for such great moderation and for just an inspirational closing. I love that. And thank you so much to each of our amazing panelists and schools. Once again, we could not bring such amazing content without the help of these schools. So I'm going to go ahead and recognize them again. Thank you so much to Notre Dame, Georgetown University, Carlson School of Management, Johns Hopkins, and Judge Business School. It was a great session. Registrants, this will also live evergreen on our site. So if there's something you want to go back and listen to or take notes of something, definitely, absolutely go back and listen to this webinar. If you have any questions about anything you've seen or heard today, please reach out to us at premba@fortefoundation.org. We love connecting with our audience. And thank you again for investing in yourself and carving out this lunch break to just learn more about how an MBA can really just help you reach your goals. So thank you, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your day and have a delightful week ahead.